Welcome to another episode of Resortera Wave, the World Cup edition. Thank you for everyone that watched last night's episode, Tuesday episode before this Mexico Saudi Arabia game. Um, Props to Mexico for winning a match in the World Cup.
Scoring some goals.
Yeah, scores the goals 2-1. It's a lot of doom and gloom right now. I think the one against Argentina, we talked a lot about that stuff, Oscar. It was pretty. We basically made conclusive thoughts as if this was gonna happen. Um, but today surprises, no? In the lineup, Orbelin came in, Edson was back in the 11. Um,
Martin starts.
Martin starts. Um, uh, what other things stood out for you today, Oscar? I mean, one of the things that
Jorge
you said,
Sanchez also started again.
Jorge Sanchez started again, but like in general, it was we want to see El Tri leave con showing up a better version of itself than what it showed in the first two games of the World Cup.
Yeah, Nayib, I think without a doubt, I think if you looked at the first two games, is it safe to say we we play with little risk on the offensive threat? Like we would rather have kept if getting forward was going to affect our defensive duties or get countered or create threat for the opposition, we would how do you say, we would prefer the defensive stability over risking and being a little bit more proactive in the final third for both
Yeah,
matches, right? Especially the second game. The second
yeah,
game
yeah.
there was nothing.
Second game, and I think the first game it was I think when you look at what happened in that game against Poland, and he put in a player like Antuna, when I think he could have put in Orbelin in that case. No, I
Yeah.
just it's crazy that Orbelin doesn't play until the last game.
Hmm.
And I think
And
he
shows up.
and shows up, no, and does show something different, something dynamic for the attack, no. Um, let's look quickly at the stats from the game just to get a better idea of how that looked. Um, you know, Things that stand out, of course, is Orbelin's performance, 76 minute, 4 shots, 1 shot on target, 46 touches, um, point 0.3 with expected goals, point 0.3 with non-penalty expected goals. Um, we were looking at this, no, Oscar, before we started the show a little bit, and just getting a better sense of how the game went, no.
Hmm.
Um, I think Luis Chavez was
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I mean, who's been the player of the tournament for the Mexican national team? Luis
Luis
Chavez,
Chavez,
Gallardo, and Montes.
yeah, right there,
You
right there.
know,
I mean, and, those three, I just don't know any other ones that could match.
honorable mentions Chucky and Vega for me.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I feel like since the first game, they digressed a little bit. They were still positive, but they started at a point like if it looks like they're gonna keep the momentum, and it slowly just started dwindling down a little bit compared to Chavez, who was all of them. He had a little slight dip against Argentina, but I think that was far from his fault. I think it was the game plan that prevented him to play his game. But a game like today, man, he was.
yeah. Montes got the most touches in today's game. Four tackles, 2 interceptions. Orbelin had 4 tackles as well. Um, Expected goal was highest for Henry Martin, point 0.6. We look at the game in general. uh, it's 2.2 for El Tri today.
Yeah, it ranged from all over. I saw one from the XG Philosophy Twitter account. Apparently, it was 3.13, something like that, compared to Saudi Arabia's 1.22, I think.
Yeah.
SofaScore and this one are more similar to each other, but nonetheless, Nahib, I think if you're just looking up straight stats and you didn't watch the game, the national team created more than enough opportunities today.
To
They
score at
did, to
least
be
four
honest, Nahib,
goals, no?
yeah, they did more than enough to get through, Nahib, just for today's match alone. Pero I think that era, and I think the national team in general, the last four World Cup cycle, is those finer details that we lacked, that final piece of quality that we lacked, I think.
32 crosses for the team today.
Hmm.
and only
But
what was the number that we saw a while back? Crosses, completed crosses, only three of them.
yeah,
So they had 32 crosses, and three of them were completed.
yeah. So actually, and so the way we're looking at it is out of the 32 attempts or 33, sorry, Nate, I don't know how much it was again.
Yeah, it was
Only
32, I
three
think.
was actually it got from player X to player Z in the box 3 times. Um, Goes to show, I guess, a little bit of the desperation, especially towards the end. They were just trying to get across, and I know one of them that comes to mind right now is Charlie. He had one position where Raul kind of laid him off to the right outside, and
Yeah,
instead of taking another extra little touch, get a little bit forward in a sense, get some numbers in, he just did it first time, and he played it behind all the Mexican national players, and then kind of just gave it to Saudi Arabia. But same thing with the shots now. 26 shots and only 11 on target, and then maybe only four to six actually were like kind of dangerous.
yeah. No, I think what you look is I mean, 10 shots on target. That's a good number. No, it is one of those things where El Tri created opportunities. And at the end it wasn't enough. At the end they conceded as well, right, from a set piece, I believe.
No, it
Um,
wasn't.
it wasn't a
No,
set
it wasn't
piece,
a set piece.
Oscar.
No, it wasn't a set piece. It was just Saudi Arabia. They were not in transition, but they were kind of like building up, and a great one too with their goalie right now. And
Yeah,
yeah, I guess the defense kind of just caught sleeping a little bit. Ochoa maybe could have done better. I don't know. It's hard to assess. I would have to watch it again, but
yeah,
it was just a good goal more than anything. It's how many times have we seen this in the world of this sport where when you don't take advantage of your chances, a team can
yeah.
just take one, and that's what happened.
What a day, no? Australia beat Denmark. We're talking yesterday about the Asian teams, and how they're sort of like,
France lost too.
France lost to Tunisia. So like, there was that sort of
Shock factor that could be
shock
there.
factor that we were like, maybe El Tri might be able to make it out after these results early on in the morning.
Yeah,
Um, but in general, se veía venir el Titanic.
I like
Uh,
that by the way.
yeah, the Tritani. I mean, what can you say? Tata's out. Now I think the discourse is sort of like, oh, we need massive change, but it's not gonna happen. No, I think
That's always the
yesterday,
discourse, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yesterday Medrano was sort of like, saying that John De Luisa will renew, and he'll stay in the FMF. The I wouldn't be surprised if the jersey that has sold the most for this World Cup is El Tris. Maybe Brazil is up there, because you know what Brazil is. But right after Brazil, I wouldn't be surprised if it's El Tri. El Tri selling out a jersey.
Top five easily.
El Tri selling out a jersey right now that is not even wasn't even worn in the World Cup. That's a pretty jersey, and
The white
they
one, yeah,
didn't wear
yeah.
it once. So
hmm
it's in that business aspect, El Tri is up the roof right now.
We're always winning in that aspect. Man. That's
Winning,
not. That's
winning,
not.
winning. So now look, this is an interesting situation. No qualifiers for El Tri for the next World Cup, which gives it a little bit of leverage in the sense of, okay, we got to you know
We kind of got quote unquote the hardest part out of the way in recent
rejuvenate the
times.
team. I think that's the word, rejuvenate the team. It's desperate need of rejuvenation. Um, I don't know if Ochoa will still be part of the picture. It looks like he's sort of sewn in that he wants to play another World Cup by the looks of it. I don't know how that's gonna play out, but he's gonna be still in the picture. Um, but other than that, it's sort of like all building from nothing at this point. No, look, Chavez, it was the star of the World Cup. I think Chavez is like what, 25 or 26.
26.
So it's like, he's a late bloomer. Late bloomers, we've had many. Peralta is probably the main one, especially in the last years. Chavez is a late bloomer. When you look at the situation with the U.S. and you look at their midfields, I think their average age is 22, or 23 or something. So it is what it is, no? And I use the U.S. as comparison because at the end of the day, that's gonna be the main. It's been the main rival, no? And so right now, that's the situation now. You got to see what that team has and what El Tri lacks. El Tri in their biggest game of this World Cup started Herrera and Guardado. That's what happened. In the biggest game that the U.S. had yesterday, they started McKinney, Musa, and Adams. It's so young, dynamic. So es la realidad también. Es lo que tenemos. Now, the big test for El Tri arrives, no? It's who will be the coach and stuff like that. But, I think don't expect for massive changes. I think that's one of the things, no?
We can
Don't
hope,
be
but yeah,
don't be
exactly.
surprised if Hugo Sanchez is the manager, to be honest, at this point.
Piojo.
Or Piojo, or maybe Ambris. Like we said, Almada might be the manager.
I
But
told you right away, Nayib, that
yeah, right away
if
that's
we're
one of
gonna
the
go
first.
foreigner, we have to.
If we have to go foreigner, but I think we've done foreigner twice already, in 2018 and 2022, and it hasn't worked. Maybe with Osorio was better, but así que digas a big difference, tampoco. No, it's still,
It's
of course, round of 16 ending, but you lose two games. You lose Sweden and then you lose Brazil. This one is sort of like, you lose against Argentina, but you tie and then you you win, no? So it's sort of like, but I think that's one thing. The feeling is right now that I think it's gonna be a Mexican manager,
you think,
but who's gonna step up to the plate? That's or
and
who are they
if they're
gonna
be given the
be?
patience too.
Yeah, yeah. But the patience, if you got the patience until the World Cup, no, unless they're like, oh, you gotta win the Gold Cup, and that I think sort of destroys a little bit. No, no,
It's gonna
like you
be hard
said,
to measure because sensors aren't gonna be qualifiers. Because like if Chepo didn't have to deal with qualifiers, he would have been the manager at the World Cup. Let's be honest. I think
yeah,
so. It it's gonna be an interesting period. It's gonna be a very important period where I think we need to get an experienced manager who knows the game. A lot of people are shouting for Jimmy Lozano. I would like him. The only thing is for me, he just lacks that experience a little bit
yeah,
compared to Almada now. Why I think it's justifiable we're screaming for him is because more than anything he knows Mexican football. Maybe not
yeah,
as to the extent of La Volpe, but he's worked at two institutions where the emphasis on the youth players and Mexican players and how it is to work with them, Santos and Pachuca. You're not going to get that from a lot of League MX managers in general, or
yeah.
even Mexican general managers in general, unless you want to go with Piojo. And just look at the turnover rate in Liga MX now. But what's the average time that a Liga MX manager even stays at the helm? Like a year if you're lucky. And the fact
Mm-hmm.
that Almeida has been in Mexico since what 2019 now, almost 3 years.
He said several years. No, it's been a while.
Um,
That's the easy bet. No, that the probability if it's gonna be again a foreigner. But I think they're gonna seriously consider the Mexican manager this time around. But there's not that many options. It's not that they're falling off the tree like apples falling off the tree. No, no, no. It's gonna be. It could be up.
Vucetich maybe. Even if you get Vucetich, I think he's
I don't think
past
he's
his
willing
time
to
a
go
little
to the
bit.
FMF either, after what they did to him. That's what I'm telling you. Hugo Sanchez always says he wants to be the coach. And is it crazy? Hell yes, crazy. But if he's gonna be with, I don't know, you can put Jimmy with Hugo Sanchez or something like that. Something of that sort might happen. Um, but I think there has to be a special emphasis in the rejuvenation because the regression is pretty obvious, no? With sort of the players that are available, sort of like a clean sheet. Everyone's saying start with a clean sheet. We'll see if the FMF
Yeah.
actually pulls out the clean sheet, no? Like of you know, a lot of people are saying Herrera, Guardado shouldn't be playing for El Tri anymore. But I think unless they say, go out and say, I'm not playing no longer for the national team, they'll still be available for the national team, no? Because It's not like you have a lot of players as well, that are playing at that or were at that level,
Well,
no?
I think we probably don't have players playing in a team like Betis every week. Atletico de Madrid at one point for Herrera, but at some point, Naive, I do think
We got a
I don't want to
race.
say we have to just let Eric Sanchez, Luis Chavez, Edson let them struggle this world. Perfect example is the U.S. right now. I think even if they had crashed out Naive this World Cup, which looking by the way they played, I find it highly doubtful.
Yeah.
But even if they failed, just the experience from that, and even though they kind of struggled in the second half against Iran, they stuck it out and they knew what just a lot what the experience they're gonna get from this from those young players compared to our midfield of Guardado, Herrera. Um, what are
No,
they gonna
Chavez,
bring for you?
Chavez at least
It,
got experience, but like I said, Chavez
but even
is
Edson,
up there.
he didn't even get minutes against probably one of the biggest games he could have in his career. He still hasn't played the biggest game in his career for Mexico. It was taken away from him against the Argentina game.
And
I'm
that's
not saying
where
he was going to
Martino
change.
also.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't think. Who knows? It probably wouldn't have changed the outcome. But um, yeah, Nate. I think more than anything, I'm still more upset about the Argentina defeat more than anything. But yeah, the discourse
Yeah,
right now, it's
and it's hard to sort of envision what's gonna happen next, no? It's because you can go many routes, and you can go the crazy route that I just mentioned a while back of Hugo Sanchez being the manager. I think that's a really crazy route, but I think anything's open at this point because
mm-hmm.
you just don't know who's gonna make the decisions, or I don't know if Urdiales will continue, but it looks like if John De Luisa continues, that means Urdiales continues. Um, there's so many issues on other areas of the Mexican game. The women's team not qualifying for the World Cup, the U20s not making it to the U20 World Cup and the Olympics. So a lot of things just bunched up together, and it was sort of like a finalization of
The cherry on
uh,
top. I think they
yeah, it
said
was one
today.
of the poorest years that we've seen for El Tri in a lot of aspects in many areas, no? Um, so of course you want to sort of detonate sort of something for it to change because I think that there is a big demand from a lot of the people that see us and a lot of people that follow us. You want to see change, you want to see something different, but it's very hard, when El Tri sort of tied to certain allegiances that have been there for many many years, that it's gonna change, no? And they got the World Cup next in the next 4 years, and
The,
I don't know how things could improve or whatnot. Um, I think in general this is a World Cup of like a reality check, no? Of like this is the
yeah,
level you're in right now.
we definitely couldn't paper over the cracks more than anything this World Cup compared
Mm.
to even 2010, naive, 2014, especially 2018 to an extent, which I think overall it was still pretty good. But in terms of not being able to paper the cracks and still getting through at the end,
Yeah,
with the combination of having all those like just everything in and around. I mean, we talk about you know Guardado and Herrera having just over the age players who aren't in form necessarily, but I'll just go back even just the last World Cups. We've always had that type of maybe older players who maybe shouldn't be in that situation, but like you said, it's what we have and it's kind of what's available at the moment
yeah,
because
yeah. No,
of
and Mexican
the
football has
imported players.
always been filled with accidents or things that you just don't know how to explain. No, for example, Neri Castillo in 2007, the Copa America that he gave, you're like, oh my God, we finally have a player of this caliber, and he disappeared. He then disappeared. He never played a World Cup for El Tri. Um, then we got this situation with Chicharito, the Mexican top goal scorer of selecciones, and he has this issue that he does off the field that it's disturbing for the coaching staff, disturbing for some of his teammates, and he's not part of the team anymore. Or he might return once the new manager comes in. Who knows? That's still up in the air. That happens. There's other World Cups where Carlos Vela says, "I don't want to play. I don't feel like playing," and even though he's at the best level of his life, and he just doesn't want to show up. And the list goes on and on and on. There's so many intricacies, or I don't know,
Just so many variables that come into
variables
play,
that are
and
very
it comes
negative.
into negative effect in the end of the day.
And so I think Mexico has always been entangled in that sort of scenarios that are just not positive, no, and there's always something that is not right, no, and it's incomplete. It's not the complete package. um but that's what el Tri and Mexican football have always been. It's there's always something lacking, um if you were thinking, if you wanted to think strictly and settle something, this is not a 4 year project. I think El Tri really has to do something that is 12-year project. That every World Cup you see some sort of advancement until the 12 years. This is it's 3 World Cups in 12 years, so you plan accordingly for each World Cup. You have an advantage now that you qualify directly to the first one. So the first one you can test out as much as you can. A lot of people are going to say, oh, pero se juega en Mexico, Estados Unidos is the best of. You don't have a team right now. It's like you don't have a team to really envision yourself that you're going to do the World Cup of your life. It's possible because Mexican football has taught us that they can make magic happen. But right now, you got to start with a clean slate, focus, test as much as you can from now to the next World Cup. The younger the team, the best. I think that's the best option. If the average age is 24, 25 for the 2026 World Cup, I think that's a big win. Then after that, you see how it's evolving. Maybe a lot of people are gonna say, well, in this World Cup, the best players are Liga MX based. But if you can say that your whole 11 in the World Cup after 2026 and 2030 is all base a European base, I think that's a big win. And then you move it from there, and then maybe something positive can happen in the future of Mexican football. But right now, the state is that they want to start with a clean slate. They already have a ticket to the next World Cup. And they also have to understand that you got to give time to that manager, that the manager could possibly lose the Gold Cup, the Nations League, whatever, because the US is playing at a top level and Canada is not that far away. Canada is going to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to put those things into consideration. Are we going to return to Libertadores in Copa America? No, because the business says,
That'd be a step in the right direction, pero
yeah, but the business says that we got to stick in CONCACAF. Leagues Cup is coming up in a couple of months. That's the focus. That's the reality. We got to deal with it, and then it is what it is. That's the state of Mexican football. And, you can say so many dreams and things, but it's not going to change. I mean, it's staying the same way because I heard La Volpe being so euphoric about Libertadores, Copa America. It's not happening. I think there was a report this week that Canada has more likelihood than Mexico to be in Copa America.
mm-hmm.
Así de loco está la cosa. Así de loco está la cosa. But, it's El Tri had an opportunity in the early 1990s, but they didn't take it.
Yeah.
They were lured by something else. But
I think to defend that real quick, Nayib, for the Copa America, before, I mean, how many times did we send, I guess, quote unquote, the A team to Copa America, or the priority wasn't there because the Copa Oro? But the reason for that was for the confederations.
yeah.
But seeing now that the confederations no longer exist, they might come back. I hope it does.
No,
The
and it was
priority
a
should, at least, if we're not going to get back to Copa Libertadores, at least get Copa America. Go back to that. Send kids to the Copa Oro, up and coming kids, and then put your A team the priority in Copa America again. Especially with qualifiers not being an issue, not going to be nothing to be able to do there. Put the issue, little steps like that, Nayib. Like I said, we mentioned the Liga MX, the Mexican Football Federation is definitely a business driven. The discourse right now is always too like you said, people want big change, like snapping a finger. Pero también, one tweet that stood out to me was like, What we need to do is we all need to come together and stop going to the molero, stop buying the product. But
That's not gonna
it
happen.
it's gotten the market has gotten so big, Naive, that it doesn't. If we 100 people or even 1,000 people say, okay, we're not gonna buy any more product, another thousand already is already right behind us, and it's really hard to especially because we have business people running the federation. If the money isn't dipping down or isn't fluctuating, they're thinking the sporting aspect, we must be doing something decent or good. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's only when you realize everything's kind of, gone down really downhill is where you really gonna need have to do a big approach and do a clean house with in general. But because based on the numbers of today from the World Cup qualifiers, Naib, I mean, just real quick, Naib, on 2006 World Cup, we finished with 4 points, and La Volpe was the coach, and everyone, I don't think anyone's given a bad word about him in his time. 4 points, 4 goals, and three conceded, compared to Tata's. Let's see, what do we have here? We have 4 points too, 2 goals in factor, 2 goals de factor, and 3 goals against. So with La Volpe, we actually conceded more goals, but we scored a little bit more, but we ended with the same amount of points. So in that theory, when the directivo or the people in the business that run it, they're like, all right, well, it's not too bad, Maybe people are a little bit exaggerating, but when you look at the finer details of everything, papering over the cracks, you realize it's a thing that's gonna crumble real big sometime soon. And it might have in this if we had to qualify for this World Cup, pero como we have a spot automatically, it's not gonna be a big change. But
Yeah. No,
we
I
can
think
do
that's a
little
good
by
point.
little.
That's a good point you bring up. I mean, it's the finer details. It's sort of like, and it's also very true about like when you make deep conclusions of everything. It's 3 games in 10 days. I understand that, but the last 2 years of El Tri have been very, very. Um, they haven't been the best. I mean, they've been
And
very
not
poor.
everything too naive too. I think I've defended Tata. I think more than you. But I'm not gonna defend him again. Not everything was his fault too. También.
Yeah.
Everyone has a responsibility. I mean, did one of his quote unquote leaders, one of his guys, could have easily got to a mid table team in Spain, Hector Herrera, but he decided to go to Houston Dynamo before a World Cup here, or just leading up to the World Cup. So little decisions like that too. Like if that's
Yeah. No.
supposed to be one of your examples, and he's
And
doing
look.
that, what does that set to the kids who
Yeah.
are playing?
That's true. That's true. And I brought that one up several times because that's how it felt. That's how I view it. But another
And
one
that's how it
is
is though.
another one
But I get
is
the
it.
human element though.
Yeah, yeah. Look, and another one is the situation with Raul Jimenez. Um, Raul Jimenez is true. He hasn't scored a goal for El Tri in a World Cup, and that's a fact, no. But one of the things is when this process started, he was the undisputed starter. And then, like I said a while back, the Neri Castillo injury, the Vela not wanting to play for El Tri in 2014, the Chicharito situation. I should have also included Raul in there. I mean, nobody, absolutely nobody, thought that was going to happen to him. And thank God he's still alive and he went to a World Cup. But did he have the elements to be a difference maker on the pitch? Absolutely not.
In this current day, no,
And
unfortunately.
that is a very delicate situation because I think the coaching staff there should have been pretty straightforward with Raul. I mean, Raul, you haven't played in 3 months. It's impossible for me to take you when I have someone like Santi Jimenez who's scoring goals, is young, will learn through the process. Take Santi instead of Raul, or even instead of Funes Mori, who only played 10 minutes in the whole World Cup. I mean, those are the type of decisions
Yeah.
that really, really struck me as negative from Tata. The same can be said with Linus, but I understand where Linus is. He hasn't been able to be a consistent starter in Europe, and I understand that part. Um, but with the whole situation with Raul was so confusing overall. because there's so many elements, the human aspect, like I said,
It's really the human element, eh? Porque
but
como, how you gonna break a
professionally,
kid's heart like
yeah,
that
yeah, no,
too?
no, es not a kid, ya está grande, Raúl, pero that was a very tricky situation to deal with, and I hope that Raúl can return to Wolves and start scoring goals and enjoy that part of his game, but there's a lot of criticism right now in the national team towards him,
Yeah.
and to a certain extent, there is reasoning behind it because he hasn't been able to step up in the last
It's
2 years.
yeah, it's a tricky one, eh, to be honest.
In the
Like,
last 2 years, he's been he's been part of the problem. No, I mean, there's El Tri hasn't had a good goal scorer in the last 2 years. Now that's why Martin ended up being the starter in this World Cup, and Martin did as much as he could.
he ended up getting a goal.
He got to go, and but it wasn't enough for El Tri. Um, but those are, it's very hard to analyze it right now because
We can get carried away just because
he,
it's just first reaction. You know what I
this
mean?
first reaction, and there's so many things in your brain. Um, I think the way to end it though is we always wish the best for Mexican football. I think that they always have the support of millions. I think this World Cup basically showcases the amount of fans that El Tri has. But yeah, I mean, it is a very confusing moment for El Tri in terms of how do you rejuvenate the team? Who do you pick as manager now? Who will lead the reins of Mexican football for the next 4 years and 8 years? No, so um, the vision of the team, the type of identity that you want, all those things are still are up for grabs right now. So it will be interesting to see.
Yeah, Naive. Just to put it on a positive note as well on my end, I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. I mean, I know we want to talk about how we didn't bring any players under 23, but we still have a lot of kids that didn't come to this World Cup who are being established Liga MX players. They're hopefully going to make that jump abroad. We got the Luis Chavez situation and everything there. We got
Montes is
Santi,
probably, yeah.
Montes, Gallardo, who had an impeccable World Cup in my opinion too. So I think there is hope. Let's just hope that we can connect the pieces all together and hopefully try to approach it in a different way, in a positive light. And just a shout out to Luis Chavez, Nate. He was so good. He was playing in these tiempos. I went to go buy them to see maybe they can give me some quality in the pickup games there. I thought I'd leave it like, with that with a little funny note there, but yeah, shout out
Yeah,
Luis
at
Chavez.
least Chavez had a good World Cup. No, I think he was a
It's not
very
all
very
negatives.
positive.
It's not all negatives. There's positives there here too.
Yeah, there is. So we'll see what happens in the next weeks or so. We'll see if we record another Resortera Way World Cup edition. Maybe this is the last one. Thank you to all the viewers in the last weeks. Really appreciate it. And we'll see if what we record in the next weeks and months. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Oscar, also for your time.
Hey, you guys take care.